What's up everybody? Today is genuinely a reason to celebrate because finally we have some actual content and footage from Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. We've had a 28-minute presentation and an 8-minute long trailer showing us everything that we can expect when this comes out on a now announced date of July the 9th, 2026. Let's get into it. Now I am beyond excited because Assassin's Creed Black Flag was the game that got me into the entire Assassin's Creed franchise, all the way through to where we are now with Shadows. Admittedly, it wasn't the best, but Mirage, and before that, Valhalla, which is probably my favorite game of all time, and of course the original trilogy with Ezio and Desmond, and everything in between, including Assassin's Creed Black Flag, or Assassin's Creed 4, as some people would call it. And now we have Resynced, and for ages we've been speculating over when it was going to happen, if it was going to be this year, whether it was going to get delayed again, whether it was even going to happen at all. And now we finally have something to look forward to, an actual date and some amazing footage that we've seen today. So what about the footage itself? Well, I think it looks incredible. I must admit, it probably doesn't look quite as good as I thought it would. I thought it might just be a little bit better, but I have to say it's still an improvement on what happened originally, all these years later, over a decade since the original came out, and it is by far improved. Like, I'm talking legitimately stunning and beautiful. The scenery in particular looks incredible. The thing I think just doesn't look quite right yet is just the animation of characters. I think that just looked a little bit like it could have been slightly better when you compare it to some other games that are out at the moment. I feel like that was just a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit lacking, but it's more than made up for in everything else that we've seen. And regardless, even the character animation is still better than it was all those years ago when the original game came out. It is definitely improved, but the scenery in particular, the actual settings, the locations, the cities, the environments, the jungles, the towns, the taverns, the sea battles, the weather, the jackdaw, everything looks unbelievably good. Like, it is seriously improved. There is no doubt that the Anvil engine that they've used for this has really done its job. It looks amazing. So am I excited? Yes, this definitely looks like it's going to live up to the hype. But let's not forget that there are changes. There are going to be some differences in this game to the original. Now, first of all, something that was actually announced a few days ago, but I didn't really see them mentioning it in the trailer, is the fact that this is not going to be turned into an RPG. And a lot of people will be really happy about that. They prefer a character-driven story arc from beginning to end, all quite linear. And there's going to be a few side quests instead of like finding treasure and stuff like that, and sea battles and all that kind of thing, but no longer with the kind of relentless, endless side quests that you can go on, or different journeys or options in terms of what characters say, which never end up making a difference anyway. You know, those kinds of things they've not been implemented, which is fine because that's never what Black Flag was about originally. Obviously, I compare it to Valhalla in particular in that respect, and that's fine. Valhalla was obviously part of the RPG saga. This is not that. This is more true to the original and definitely sticks to what it does best, which is tell that linear story of Edward Kenway against the Templars, joining the Assassins and all of the other pirates that join in with him, all the way from obviously Blackbeard, Merry Reed, and so many others. But there are also some new characters coming in. He's actually got more, I think they were referred to as maybe like lieutenants, definitely sort of sidekicks, if you like, sort of B characters that will come along, and you can progress those characters now with new storylines for what they're doing. I believe there were three different basically companions that you can have that help you to run the ship, and depending on which one you have and how you progress with them, also enable you to have different upgrades for the jackdaw so that when they're manning it, when they're in charge of it, they can do different things. So for example, they have different weapon mechanics and different systems that are in play. So it does allow for a little bit of something incredibly new. All of these characters are completely brand new. None of those three were in the original at all. And all of them have their own unique story that they will bring into it. So you'll be able to go on adventures which are entirely brand new for those characters who are completely new. So there is going to be something different that we've not done before. You could argue that these are like side quests and side adventures, and yeah, they probably are, but it's nice to have, even if it's on a sort of small downscale version, some new stories and some new adventures that you can go on with some new people that's different to what we had before. So it's not like a major change, but it is something that they brought in to just make it a little bit different and a little bit more exciting thing, and I'm all for that. Any more adventures with pirates in Assassin's Creed, I'm all for it. But they are staying true to the original storyline, and it's going to progress exactly as it did before. But there are some things that I think might make a change to the story, and we say it's not an RPG, but there is one thing in particular that is a significant change and that I am definitely approving of, is the fact that the eavesdropping system is going to be changed. So originally, if you were doing one of the eavesdrop missions and you failed it and you got detected, you were desynchronized and you had to start again from scratch. Now it's completely changed. Now if you get caught or you get spotted during an eavesdrop mission, the mission doesn't end. You don't get desynchronized. You get to carry on playing through, which actually is much more realistic in my opinion. You get detected, now you got to fight your way out of it. The story doesn't stop just because that's happened, which is a little bit more akin to what we see in more sort of the more modern day games, the RPGs. They're more adaptable. You have to adapt live on your feet when something goes wrong. It doesn't just sort of force you to start over. And I'm all for that because personally, I don't like the eavesdrop missions. I find them a little bit tedious, a little bit irritating and annoying. And personally, I would rather have more action in place of that. So the fact that they've done it, the eavesdrop stuff is still there. If you want to be able to do it and not get caught, and obviously you would try that, then fine. You know, you've got your best shot at trying to do it properly. But if you fail and you get caught, now you're into the action, and I'm all for that. I think that's great. I love that because the eavesdrop system is well known to be a little bit of an issue. So I'm super, super glad that they've revamped that and are bringing in something slightly different where you can still stay true to the original, but if it all goes wrong, you've still got the option of some decent combat. And on that note, on the note of combat, the system has been improved. The combat mechanics are a lot smoother, they look a lot better, the finishes look great. There's a lot more, I'd say, combat that we've seen in the RPG series in terms of it being a little bit more open combat as opposed to just constant cutscenes all the time. I hate, genuinely, legitimately, the combat systems of the early Assassin's Creed games. I want to actually fight my opponent. I don't want to have to time it perfectly so that I get a cutscene of him doing something. I want to be the one to make that happen. And again, I'm comparing it to Valhalla, where you are in complete control of how you defeat your enemies, the actual combat, battling, you know, shields and parries and blocks and defenses and cuts and all those kinds of things. I love the fact that you can control that more in the RPG and have a proper fight rather than just a cinematic one. I want to make it happen. I don't want the game to do it for me. So I'm glad that the combat mechanics are going to be a little bit more akin to the RPGs. There's still cutaways, they still do the finishes and all that kind of stuff, but it looks like it's more comparable, I suppose, to, for me, for Valhalla, which is a lot better in my opinion. It's smoother, it's more fun, it's more challenging in some ways, but also easier in some ways. It's not about timing, you just have to get it right and you have to fight properly and do it yourself, and I love that. But you still have a lot of elements that were in the original that games like Valhalla don't have, which is obviously in a much more enhanced weapon availability. You've got the pistols, you've got twin swords, you've got obviously the hidden blades, smoke grenades, you know, all of these things that you don't get in some of the RPGs just because of where they're set and obviously the time periods. But you have all of these things, as well as, you know, all of the traditional stuff and all the traditional little weapons and secret things that the assassins have always used throughout the games. So like the rope and the darts and things like that. All of which was in the trailer, so obviously go and see it if you're not sure, but I thought it looked great. I thought it looked really, really good, and I'm super excited to actually try and get into this combat system and try it out and see what it's like. It looks great. I'm hoping that it's going to play like Valhalla. We shall see on July the 9th. But what about the naval combat? That again looks better, and certainly during the trailer they talked about the fact that it is enhanced. They have improved the mechanics, they say. It's one of those things where I don't think the actual naval combat mechanics ever had anything wrong with them. I actually quite enjoyed them and I thought they were really good. But even if the mechanics stayed the same, the visual effects are way better. It looked incredibly epic during that trailer, so I can't wait to get my hands on that and actually try the naval combat. It looked fantastic. So I'm hugely optimistic that that's going to be a lot of fun, and you can still do all of the same things that you could before, of these epic sea battles, taking over ships, boarding them, you know, and just really getting into it and trying to build your reputation as that pirate of the Caribbean. So I'm all for it. It looks great. One thing that they have changed and that they're bringing in as far as the jackdaw is concerned, as well as obviously new crewmates that you can get on, is that now you have the ability to have an onboard ship's pet, which you couldn't do before. But during the trailer they show that you can have a cat, you can have a monkey, and you can bring those in. And I've actually felt like that was a really cool kind of Easter egg, particularly to the RPG series, where a lot of people, some people hate it, but a lot of people love the fact that you can go and interact with like the cats and dogs and animals that are in these environments, and just kind of have some fun with it. So I thought it's a really cool feature, and I dare say I'll get wrapped up in it, and I probably will, I don't know, the monkey or the cat or the monkey. It's really hard to pick. I'd probably go for the monkey just for the fun of it, but I want to try that out. I want to see what it's like and have a lot of fun with it. But the old characters are still there. All of the famous pirates that we see before, obviously most notably Blackbeard, who I think during the trailer actually will get more scenes and actually even more exposure during the narrative and during the story, which is fantastic because he was an absolute highlight of the story in the original game and the most famous pirate of them all. So as well as all the others, I'm not going to go through all of the names, but of all the pirates that are in there, Blackbeard is obviously the one that everybody knows, and the fact that they put more scenes of him in and hopefully a little bit more action involving him, I'm all for that. I think that looks brilliant. So obviously July the 9th, feels like it's a really long time from now. It's not, it's actually only a couple of months, and we'll finally be able to get our hands on this game and actually play it and actually find out just how different it feels. I think a lot of things will be quite similar and familiar. The parkour looked to me to be pretty much exactly the same, although during the trailer they said that again it was supposed to be a lot smoother. You can still do a lot like the reverse jumps and the side jumps as well as the free jumps, but the smoothness of it looked really, really good. But again, it didn't look that different from how it used to be. It's just that the setting and the environment that you're doing it in looks incredible. So I think it would be great. I think obviously if they don't do anything to change it, it should be fine because it was fine how it was before. Then anything to kind of make it just that little bit smoother, I think it will be great. So I mean, I do think that the original game had a great parkour system. It wasn't until kind of later games where it felt a little bit, I don't know, glitchy, I think. Certainly by the time we get to like later on, a couple of games later when we get to like the French Revolution and that kind of era, for some reason like that game is just like super glitchy. I don't really know why, but that certainly seems to be a bit of a thing. In fact, a lot of people I have heard say that because they tried to push Rogue and Unity at the same time over different consoles, that because it was sort of pushed and they didn't necessarily have the resources to do it right, and they were desperately trying to get like flagship games out for the new console being launched, that is why at that stage, some people argue Assassin's Creed really fell downhill from that moment, because it was so full of bugs, and they tried to, from that moment, a lot of fans sort of like made a lot of complaints that it was really glitchy and full of bugs and all this kind of stuff because they'd rushed the game through so quickly and didn't fix any of these things. But they I don't know, for whatever reason, the people at Ubisoft took those complaints about that thing specifically and tried to turn that into, well, okay, well, we're going to fix everything. And that's what leads to the RPG series, which becomes a very Marmite thing. Some people love it, some people hate it, and it becomes very divisive. And I'm hopeful that Black Flag Resynced is actually going to bring a lot of the fan base together. There will be fans of the RPG series that never played it. There will be people that played it back then that never got into the RPGs. And I'm hoping that it's just going to, use the term unity, even though that's the game that kind of caused a lot of the problems, unite the fan base, because I think everybody will agree, whether you're going to be new to Black Flag or you're replaying it in this remastered version, everybody loves it. It is, for me, it's a deeply personal game. As I say, it's the one that got me into the franchise in the first place. But it's beloved by so many people. I don't think I know anybody that says that Black Flag isn't right up there as one of the best. There are a few that will just say, oh, it's either Desmond or nothing, and they hark on to obviously the original games. But for me, Black Flag was the moment where it just leveled up. We suddenly started then exploring new eras and just jumping into different time periods from that moment. Because as soon as you realized you could do a pirate setting, everybody was suggesting everything from Roman, Egyptian, obviously the things that they've done like Vikings, French Revolution, you name it, all the way up to the Victorian era. And I felt like that started with Black Flag because it sort of showed you that we can take Assassins versus Templars, put it into any environment in the world, and the story actually works. And it does, and I think Black Flag is proof of that. So for me, I'm really optimistic that this game is going to kind of rejuvenate the franchise a little bit, get everybody back on board, remind everybody why it is we fell in love with it in the first place, and hopefully they're going to deliver and it's going to knock it out the park. So I've got everything crossed that it's going to be great. And with that said, we've just got a couple of months to go. I need to finish playing Mirage. I'm still partway through my gameplay on that. My walkthroughs are on this video if you want to see those. I technically haven't finished Valhalla on the playthroughs. I've got to a point where I could say we've finished the main story, so that's kind of it, but there's still things we can do. But I will be ready. I will, whatever state we are in condition as to what games we're playing, when Black Flag comes out, I'm dropping everything and we're focusing on that game. That is going to be huge. It's going to take up a big chunk of the gaming content on this channel. So if you love Assassin's Creed, if you love Black Flag, please subscribe, please like the video, and stay tuned for more. It is coming. And on that terrible disappointment, it is time to end. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next episode. This podcast is over.